Okay, we're starting Pei Aleph Halacha Zayin, but we're not gonna. Today we're gonna do like an introduction. We're not gonna read yet the Shulchan Aruch yet. Do a background to get us ready for what's going on. Okay, the Ram says in Hilchos Makos and Suras that there's an Isser Asay to eat flesh from a living human being. That's what the Ram says. Deriving on the spot, the Ramban and Chumash and many other Rishonim argue, and they say it's 100% mutter. You can eat human flesh as complete. It's 100% mutter to eat it.
Oh, the man's alive or dead?
Alive. Okay.
After he's dead, it's a different.
Next time, after he's dead. But for now, if he's alive, the Ram says it's an Isser Asay, and the Ramban and the Raiva on the spot, and many other Rishonim.
What I say what that means?
I'm about to say. Give me a second. It just started. Okay, so just before we continue, the Ramah Siman Ayin Tes. It's a little Ramah at the end of a long halacha in Siman Ayin Tes, passing like the Rambam. That's also Mitzvah. Okay, so just to put things in perspective.
This is human flesh.
Human flesh.
And human.
Okay, I got all I'm saying. Today we're going to do human flesh. Okay, so that's what and the Ramah passing that's also Mitzvah like the Rambam. Okay, what's the Isra say? So the Rambam says is at the very beginning in Ma'aseh Bereshis it says Vayhi ha'adam lenefesh chaya. So a human is a chaya. Okay, the Torah is defining him as a chaya. That's how we class we put it into. And if you look in Chumash, it says Zos ha'chaya she'techelu. It says these are the chayas you're allowed to eat. It lists off 7 chayas that you're allowed to eat. So human is not one of them. Okay, so if you're allowed to eat 7 chayas and we're not there, so every other chaya is an automatically an Isra Asay to eat a chaya. If you want to eat a rhinoceros, well, a rhinoceros is an Isra Asay to eat because it's not listed as one of the 7 animals you're allowed to eat. So Elamai and humans are also chayas and they're not listed there. So it must be that it's also mitam an Isra Asay to eat a human being.
Sorry. There's a mitzvah to eat a venison is a asay?
Well,
what does that mean?
It's a mitzvah. If I choose to not eat this animal because it's kosher, I'm being mekayim mitzvah asay. I don't want to eat rhinoceros meat because the Torah says you should only eat these kind of animals. So I'm being mekayim mitzvah by choosing this one.
It's an Isra Asay. It's merely an Isra Asay.
An Isra Asay, call it Isra Asay, whatever it is. Right? If you do it, if you eat a piece of deer, right? It's right. So
my question is, it's an asay to eat these animals.
Right, but the asay, like you're saying, the asay doesn't tell you to actively do something. You're not supposed to do it. It's just by refraining from doing other things, you're being mekayim that asay.
You can only lose with this asay. Can't get anything. Don't get any mitzvahs. You can just be
okay.
It works that way. You could there's an asay not in some of your soul, but you don't do it.
Correct. Okay, now there's a little.
Are there examples of that?
I'm sure there are. I'm not so smart. Okay, now there's a little oddity. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. There's a little oddity that the Rambam says. The pasuk says Zos ha'chaya she'techelu. Okay, that pasuk that says Zos ha'chaya she'techelu is in Vayikra. The Torah twice talks about kosher and treif animals. That pasuk is in Vayikra, but in Vayikra it doesn't say that 7 chayas that you're allowed to eat. The pasuk about chayas that you're allowed to eat is in Devarim, and the pasuk in Devarim says Zos ha'behema she'techelu. Okay, now chay is b'chal behema, and that's what the Rambam means. But the pasuk Zos ha'chaya she'techelu, which the Rambam is quoting, is not a pasuk that also has with it the 7 chayas that you're allowed to eat. Okay, so he's being poetic. So if you would write just have the behema she'techelu, you have to tell you that chay b'chal behema. So just to make things more straightforward, he just says that. But really, he means it's really the pasuk that he's quoting is not technically the pasuk that's really the asay that it would be. Okay, just a little detail. Okay, anyhow, so what's the machlokes? Okay, what's this machlokes? Whether there's an Isra Asay or there's no Isra Asay on eating human flesh. So the Gemara in Kashrus, which is really the basis for the din halacha zayin that we're going to see here, has drushes that special drushes that you're allowed to eat milk from a human and blood from a human. Okay, that you're allowed to eat those things. We're going to talk about those next time. Hashem, exactly what that means that you're allowed to eat them. And the Shulchan Aruch there's a lot to say here about exactly when and how you're allowed to eat it. But there's such a drasha. The Gemara brings a drasha. You're allowed to eat milk and blood from a human. So there's 2 ways to understand that. Okay, when the Torah says that, is the Torah trying to tell you that that's because humans are really mutter? Real humans are mutter. That's why you could eat. Usually the yotze from a tameh is asur. Well, by telling you that you could drink milk means to say then the human is not asur. Because if it would be asur, then the yotze would be asur also. So we can deduce from the fact that the Torah told you allowed to eat milk from a human, it must be that the human himself is mutter. That's why it's mutter. Because usually the rule is yotze from a tameh or tameh. Okay, and the other way to learn it is No, the reason why the Torah had to tell you that you're allowed to eat milk is because otherwise you would have assumed no human is usher. That's why I told you that. The etzem of human is usher. And this is a special cool here. And the rule that it's teaching us, we'll see this more from a shach, the rule that it's teaching us is the only time we say Yotzim Tame is Tame is only when it's Yotzim from an Isra Lav. When it's Yotzim from an Isra Say, there's no such rule as Yotzim Tame Usher. Okay, that's what the Torah is teaching by telling you you can drink milk from a human. That's teaching you is that the only thing of Yotzim is by Yotzim from a Loisa Say, not when it's Yotzim from an Say. Okay, so that, for the Rambam learns from here, it's teaching you that rule by telling you that possible. Okay. Now, again, when the Torah's Kohanim brings this drasha about milk and blood from a human, it says, I meant to put the words up here. I don't have the words here. It says this, whatever it teaches you, that milk and blood from a human, there's no loisa say. Ain't no ever loisa say if you eat those things. So, the Rambam is medayik in that. There's no loisa say, and I say there is. Okay? The other Rishonim point out, it says, but there's no Gemara or drasha that tells you, this drasha, the Rambam says, teaches you that an Adam is an Asay. There's no drasha. There's no Gemara, it's no Medrash, it's no nothing. It's made up. I don't mean that. It's the Rambam's Havana of what it is. There is no Lima that says that. And they think when the Torah's Kohanim says, it's just, there's no loisa say, it just means there's no Isser. Okay? It's not so meduik the wording, there's no loisa say, it just means that there's no Isser.
Is there a kasha in the Rambam that once he's saying the Adam is a chayas, and then he's in the parsha, so should loisa say should apply also? I mean, it tells you that you can eat these and don't eat others that don't have these things on them.
So when the Torah said that you could eat their milk and their blood, it was telling you it's not part of that parsha. It's not. It's excluding. It's pulling it out. And what's doing it?
Making it halfway. We're having
that's what Torah's coming. It's telling you that there's no loisa say. There's a drush that there's no loisa say. But there is an assay, and that's why we need the pasuk. It's like pulling it a little bit out of the issue and hanging. That's what the Machlokes is showing here. Okay. Now the Ramban has another kasha from sort of like out of the din, which is like this. The Gemara says in Kashrus that there's no iser dam on insects. You now eat insects, but the blood of an insect does not have an iser dam on it. But the Gemara says, but you should know. But if you take the dam out of an insect, you're ordered for eating an insect. In other words, it's not an isser dam. If you eat it from a cow, if you eat its blood, there's no isser. Cow's a kosher animal, but there's an isser to eat dam from that animal. So when you eat dam from an insect, it's not an isser dam, because there is no isser dam on insects, but it's an isser, you're eating the insect. Okay? In other words, to say, what the Gemara, like between the lines saying is, the blood is not a yotze from the animal, it is the animal itself. So if you eat a leg, that's eating the animal, or if you eat the blood, it's also considered eating the animal itself. It's not like a yotze from the animal, it's the animal itself. As more says increases. So the Ramban says, he says, well, if the Torah says that you're allowed to eat blood from a human, that's basically saying that you're allowed to eat flesh from a human also. It's the same thing. The Gemara says is that blood is considered flesh. By an insect it is. By a blood, we say if you give the person the right hasra, he's over for eating an insect. If you tell him the insect he's eating his blood, he's not over anything. But if you give him hasra for eating insect, he is. It's considered the insect. So when the Torah said you're allowed to eat the blood of a human, what that means is you're allowed to eat a human. Because blood is flesh. It's the same thing. In din, they consider the same thing. So he says, so when the Torah says you're allowed to eat blood, which you are, again, there's some Durabanans we'll see later in the din, but you're in Midrash you're allowed to eat blood. So if you're allowed to eat blood from a human, that means that you're allowed to eat flesh. It's the same. They have the same status. And of course, the Rambam's going to say not like that. This is Ramban's kasha, but the Rambam will say no. That's why the Torah told you that there's this special exception that regular flesh from a human you can't eat, but this type of flesh, which we call blood, you're allowed to eat. Okay, so that's going to be a machlokes. The Ramban's kasha from the pieces. I'll try to have a order. Okay, there's a something more? Okay, there's an interesting, a little bit of a side. Interesting, the Maggid Mishnah says, he says, Taka according to Rambam, why Taka does the Torah give us a special exception that you don't, that the flesh part of humans is usher, but the blood part of the flesh is usher. I mean, that's what the Ramban is pointing out, that blood is really considered flesh. So why Taka is one flesh mutter and one flesh is usher? Like, what has that come up? How do we call it why do we say such a thing? So Maggid Mishnah says the pshat is like this. He says, obviously, human babies are going to live off of mother's milk. So the Torah, and when the Gemara says that dam nechav nas cholov comes from dam. He says, so the person, how can it be that every child's going to be brought up on machalas asuras, on something that comes from machalas asuras? So the person decided, okay, let's make blood mutter. We'll make blood mutter so that that way we won't have issues. What? So he said, so we won't have issues. So we won't have issues with the cholav later on for the babies. So sort of like it wasn't like that. I'm not exactly sure what that means. it makes it as if like the Russians like just decide, yeah, but the Russians like there's nothing behind it. It's as if like I feel bad, like I didn't get it exactly. But better Kashrus even than what you asked, the Guriam Marshoyas, he says, really? He says, maybe it's the developed question of what you asked. He says, if we really concern the dam nech of nasachol, so we chol from cows. Chol from cows could be mutter without the dam being mutter. It comes from dam, and the Gemara says we have a drasha that it's mutter anyhow. Even though it comes from dam, we have a drasha. So that doesn't bother us. That's okay. You couldn't make sense. So what's wrong with the humans doing the same thing? Okay, so the Gemara tells right here on the page. Anyhow, so that's a track. Fine. Now there's another interesting point, which is I told you the two main shittas in Rishonim, the Rambam and the Ramban. Okay, that's what we'll call it, the Rambam and the Ramban. Whether it's mutter with an isra seitira, a human flesh, or completely mutter. Okay, and the Chinuch brings these two shittas. He brings the Rambam and the Ramban. And the Minchas Chinuch points out like this. He says, you should know that there's a few other shittas. Okay, and one of the other shittas is the Ra'ah, who holds that it's also even a loisasei. Not negate how he could learn such a thing. The Torah says not there. He says it's a loisasei to eat it. He says, the Minchas Chinuch, he says, no, there are people who think that the Ra'ah is the author of the Sefer Chinuch. He said, how can it be that he wrote the Sefer Chinuch and he only brought the Rambam and the Ramban and not his own shita? He says, he's bringing two shittas. He says, Rambam holds like this and the Ramban holds like this. If he's going to bring all the shittas, you think he would have slipped in his shita into the Rosa. It's like, unless he's like really, really trying to hide himself. By like, if I don't put it this.
Other books of their own, like, I saw them both.
Right, yeah. He's like, they're trying, like, he's like, so anyway, but let me just point out, okay, it's all right. Okay, now, so there's a machlokes. And the Rambam says it's also asay, the Ramban says it's mutter, and the Rambam passes that it's also. Okay, so when I first looked at it, I'm like, okay, very nice. Who cares? I mean, what are we going to do with it? So I have 4 possible nafkaminas. Okay, nafkaminas. What do we care about this then? Okay, 4 possible nafkaminas. That is, first is Abnei Nezer says. He says we have a din that says for tefillin you can only use min hamutta beficha for kisvei hakadosh. You only use min hamutta beficha. So he says if you want to tie your tefillin with human hair, you want to sew your tefillin with human hair. L'chayra is totally the machlokes, the Rambam and the Ramban. He says according to the Rambam, the human is not mutta beficha. It's usher to eat it. You can't eat a human, so you can't use his hair either. If your tefillin break, you can't pull a string out of your beard and then go tie up your tefillin with that. Okay, according to Ramban, it's min hamutta beficha.
Hair should have a
So he talks about that. Usually, min hamutta beficha doesn't depend on mutter and usher in that way. Okay, usually, min hamutta beficha, the hair of we always sew. Okay, it doesn't really depend on those rules. What do you say?
Usually it's either the cloth.
Usually it's either. Yeah, but I don't think it depends on. The cloth is tied with hair?
What's cloth?
Okay.
Inside the Kashrus.
Oh, then there was a
I don't think that it depends on mutter usher, the regular rules. It depends. If it's a thing that's mutter b'ficha, then everything that comes from it you're allowed to. If it's not mutter b'ficha, you're not allowed to use any of its byproducts. He talks about that. And he has another side. In each of the tzadim he has, maybe it's not correct, but overall he thinks such an afkamil. Okay, so if you're ever stranded on a desert island, you run out of vein, it's almost like this. It's almost like this. Okay, the Ben Ish Chai has a much more practical, if I could use the word, nafkamil, and he says like this. He says, if a person, you think about this different because it's a Kashrus Shabbos thing. Okay, if a person has a piece of skin coming off their finger or their hand, they want to rip it off. So the Ben Ish Chai says you shouldn't do it with your mouth. You shouldn't pull it off with your mouth because you might swallow it. According to the Rambam, it's Isra Seid to swallow that piece of skin. There's an Isra. If you bite off your nail, that's okay because nails are not usher. But biting off your skin, okay, it's Isra Seid to swallow a piece of skin. So he says, according to the Rambam, you shouldn't be. If you have a piece of skin hanging off, you should pull it off with your hand, not with your mouth. You pull it off with your mouth, you might swallow it. You'd be over an Isra Seid.
Did you say the piece of skin is hanging on Shabbos?
In the gate Hilchos Shabbos, whether you have pull it off, so that's right. You think about it. But during the week, that the din is you're not allowed to. You just pull it off. He says, but if you pull it with your mouth, then you might end up swallowing it, which would be an Isra Seid. So he says, so you don't do it. I mean, how many people think about eating, live human flesh? So here's an example. Mom's got live human flesh right here in my hand, and instead of I pull it with my finger, if I pull it with my mouth, I can end up swallowing it. Okay. He goes on to something else, which we're not going to get into, a deep that I didn't understand really. About a whole bunch of pratim about which part would be asur mutter. I didn't get that exactly. Anyway, but that's a nafmin. Okay, a third nafmin.
Yeah, for careful.
No, That's going to be for next time. For dead people.
Byproducts.
Right, okay, that's for next time. I saved that for next time. Okay. Okay. I didn't think of it. I didn't think of it. Well, Bonus Mutter.
Okay.
Bonus Mutter, you're right. I didn't think of that. Okay. Fine. So that we have to wait till we read the halacha inside to find out if the vampire is allowed to do that. It's a good point. Okay. So the third is that you might have thought, this is not correct. I'm just reminding you that this is not correct, which is you might have thought that if a human flesh is usher, with an Isra say, then if I stick my hand onto hot food, there should be a blia from my hand into that food. Okay? If I stick my hand into the oven and I take toast out of the toaster, and the toast is Yad Tzadad's body, so there should be a blia from my hand. My hand is usher, and Isra say to eat my hand, into the toast, and that should make the toast usher. I took it out with a piece of chazer, it would have been usher. So I should do it with my hand, should make my food usher. Okay, so I don't know if you remember, we talked about this in Simkuf Tesval. We talked about the Stifler brings. He says, no one ever said that. You ever saw anybody in Shulchan Aruch says that you shouldn't take out bread with, touch it with your hot food. You touch your steamed beans on your plate. Oh my gosh, you just made them usher because you touched them and they were yad tzaddas. So he says nobody says that, and obviously it's not isser. And the reason he says is really the same thing that we said beforehand, and we're going to say it again soon from Mashach, which is these rules don't apply to an isser aseh. In his case, he's talking about the rule of tam ki'ikr. Tam ki'ikr doesn't apply to an isra aseh. Like we said before, the din of yotzi doesn't apply to an isra aseh, which are all very related dinim. That these kind of rules don't apply when we have an isra aseh. Okay, he brings a raya from an we talked about it then when we spoke about it, and we're going to have a shach soon saying almost the same thing. Okay, so that's the Stifler understands it. Well, my sin, it's not usher. He said there's no blias from a human. We don't concern about blias from even according to Rambam. He says the pshat of that is because there's only tam ki'ikr when it's an isra aseh, not by isra aseh. Like we said a minute ago, that there's no yotze from an isra aseh.
I don't think there's no blias thing.
That's what he talks about. That's the whole shtickle in the Stifler is about whether there are blias from an aseh. But it is connected. So you stuck your finger into the hot tea. So it is connected. But that's what the whole shtickle really is about, whether there are blias. But he wants to say, have a raya from here, even if you think that there are blias from living things, not from an isra aseh. It wouldn't be a problem from an isra aseh. That's what it's clear. That's his whole thing is about that. That's what they're, okay. And the last thing, which I suspect no one here has ever done, the last thing is like this, something called placenta fagi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Okay, and that is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and that is, there's I don't know what you call it, a movement, a culture, I don't know what you call it, of ladies who decided, what? Call that, it depends whether you do it or you don't do it, whether you call it the Mishigas or movement, but of ladies who, after they give birth, they eat their own placentas. Okay? That is to say, I told you, no graphics today. No graphics today. This is not for, I actually was going for a reason.
Slide is one word?
No, the slide goes all the way down to the bottom. The problem is we're not doing the second half of the year. So you're not going to see the rest of it.
That's it for today.
You're going to be, that's as far as we're going to get. Okay, so that is to say, they have these theories that if you eat the placenta, it cleanses the uterus and it tightens it up again and it helps them produce milk and it protects you against postpartum depression and al-kutazachem. I mean, there are all kinds of things it is. Okay, what do you say? Shambhayit stuff also. And so doctors say that they don't have any scientific basis for this whole thing. But if you go on the internet, you can find recipes for how to prepare that in case you're hungry. And as of January 1st, you'd be happy to know that in the state of Oregon, it's now officially legal to eat your own placenta. It's officially law on the books. As of January 1st, you could eat your own placenta. In other states, they let it also, but it's not official. Now it's official in Oregon, so if you want to...
Why would it be illegal?
Well, what happens is that, what I'm reading is that when a lady says, I want to eat it, there's all kinds of rules for medical waste, what you're supposed to do with things. So the lady says, I want to take it home with me. It's like, all of a sudden, there's all kinds of, issues with that. So most of these ladies have to sneak it out. They get someone to behind their back give it to them. Okay, I'm not interested. But anyway, that's what there is, such a thing. So now, the placenta, I was going to put a picture for this, which is like this. We talked about in Halacha Gimel, Halacha Daled, about Shilya. Okay, the Shilya Shachamor Nurtziboy, the Shilya is the amniotic sac. Okay, that Shilya, the din was over there, if you remember, it was a Shiloh. Why a Shilya's mother? From a chamor. A chamor is a chafe animal. How can the shilya of a chamor is mutter? It was a shiloh there. The main reason we spoke about there was that maybe a shilya is considered pirsha. That is to say, for something to be pirsha, it has to first be yotze from the animal. It's a certain type of yotze that qualifies as pirsha instead of being yotze. Okay, so if the shulya is considered not the animal. The shulya is not the animal. It's considered the yotze of the animal, and since it's the yotze, it could qualify as a pirsha. Okay, so my thought is that the placenta is not a yotze, because remember, there's no yotze from a human being. Yotze from a human being is going to be mutter. So if it would be yotze, it would be mutter. It wouldn't have to be pirsha. Even though a yotze would be mutter. But if you look at when I look at the diagrams, the appearance to me, I'm not a doctor. The placenta is really a piece of flesh that just grows out and has very specific features to it. But be'etzem, it's a piece of flesh. Okay? It's not like the shulya, which is it's sort of fleshy, but it's an added-on piece that came out. Here, it's just a part of the uterus that turns into serves that function. Okay? It doesn't appear to me to be even potentially be a yotze. I wouldn't have thought a shulya was a yotze either. That's the truth. But they're learning it. There's a who explains it like a separate creation, like a separate thing. So Agam, it's inside the mother, but it's like a separate thing inside the chamor. But the placenta appears to be mamish, a piece of flesh. That's what it is. It's really a piece of flesh that has a certain kind of a function to it. And in Cain, it goes without regular rules. And according to the Rambam, it's going to be usher. The Rambam says it was usher. And according to the Ramban, it would be mutter. According to Ramban, it's a piece of human flesh. If you want to eat it, go ahead. I mean, if you like it. No, he says it's mutter completely. No, it's mutter completely. Now, there's
no place inside of the sewer about the Shaksu.
Next time, we'll get back to a little bit. We talked about the Shaksu in Pei Dalet.
Isn't you and down off of their one?
We didn't yet. It's going to be in this thing. There are certain cases when it's us with Rabbanan.
You and that doesn't there's no down with the placenta?
I don't. It's not going to apply. We'll see what we get. No.
It's also been an ingredient in some traditional Chinese medicine.
Okay, I'm so excited. Well, we're going to see in Halachah that the issue of down, the issue of down is not going to apply to that. It wouldn't apply to the placenta. Okay, so you should just know, not everybody has the courage to eat, to fry a human placenta, eat it straight. So if you get it into a pill form, which is such a thing, you can buy it in pill form. You probably can't get your own in pill form, but you can get.
So stop trying to eat your own. It's trying to just have.
No. These people say they say you should eat your own because of the health and the germs of it. I mean, if you're eating somebody else's, who knows what you're picking up from that person? But that's if you really want to be with the program, you're supposed to eat your own. Okay, but if you can't handle that, and you can imagine that some people can't handle that, so they make it in pill form. That's somebody else's. Okay, that's. So over there, it's going to come to a shiloh we spoke about in. Gimel. Let me can't turn my page yet. I'm sorry, Halachah we spoke about, which is if I have a pill that's made out of that the active ingredient is something from a placenta, it's an Isra. We spoke about then pills be'etzem are inedible. We spoke about then a machlokes of Havana of why a pill that's inedible doesn't have the din of achshavei. I don't know if you remember this. According to the Rav Moshe, it doesn't have achshavei because for medicinal achshavei doesn't apply to medicine things b'chlal. It would be mutter to eat it. According to the Chazon Ish, pills don't have achshavei because I only want to eat the medicinal part. I don't want to eat the inactive ingredients. And the darchal, the treif, or the chametz is in the inactive ingredients. When we have a thing like this, we talk about different premarin. When we have a thing like this where the active ingredient is the isser, not the inactive ingredient. The active ingredient is the isser. Then according to the Chazon Ish's Havana, it would be usher to take that as a pill, even though it's in pill form. You could be naked. We had said that over there also. So if you're really desperate for some placenta fragi, if I pronounce it correctly, then you should take it in pill form, and according to Moshe, it's okay.